I didn't. I did at times feel that I was under the gun, that someone had actually. Should I pause for that, or should I go right through that?
There was a time when it seemed impossible to imagine Hollywood without actors like Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. She possessed the kind of talent that studios claimed they wanted, but rarely knew how to hold on to. She wasn't famous because of scandals, glamorous headlines, or carefully manufactured celebrity. Instead, she earned every opportunity through discipline, remarkable versatility, and performances that quietly demanded respect. In an industry where many careers are built on hype and disappear just as quickly, hers appeared to be built on something far more lasting. She shared the screen with some of the greatest names in cinema, worked with legendary directors, earned an Academy Award nomination before turning 30, and starred in films that audiences still revisit decades later. By every measure, she seemed destined for a career that would stretch across generations. Yet something unexpected happened. As the new century arrived, one of Hollywood's most respected leading ladies gradually slipped away from the spotlight. There was no dramatic scandal, no public feud, no spectacular box office failure that forced the industry to turn its back on her. She simply became a face audiences saw less and less, leaving many longtime movie lovers wondering how someone so gifted could seemingly vanish, while others with far less ability remained everywhere. For those who grew up watching films in the 1980s and early 1990s, it's a question that has lingered quietly for years. Was Hollywood responsible? Did she grow tired of the endless pressure? Or did she make a choice that most stars are unwilling to make? To understand that answer, we have to travel back long before the red carpets, blockbuster premieres, and awards ceremonies. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio's story did not begin in Beverly Hills or on a glamorous film set. It began in a hard-working Italian-American family in Lombard, Illinois, where success was measured not by fame, but by dedication. Long before audiences knew her name, she was already investing countless hours mastering her craft, determined to become an actress of substance rather than simply another recognizable face. That quiet determination would become the foundation of everything that followed, carrying her from the theater stage to Broadway and eventually toward one of the most remarkable rises Hollywood witnessed during the final decades of the 20th century. For many aspiring actors, landing a small role in a major film is little more than a footnote. For Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, it became the first quiet sign that extraordinary things were waiting just around the corner. After years of rigorous training and stage performances, she made one of her earliest screen appearances in Martin Scorsese's The King of Comedy in 1982. It wasn't a role designed to make her famous, and audiences could easily have overlooked her. But directors like Scorsese had an eye for talent, and simply being invited into that creative circle suggested she possessed something special. Hollywood was beginning to notice an actress whose confidence came not from ambition alone, but from preparation. The breakthrough arrived just a year later with Brian De Palma's Scarface. Surrounded by towering personalities, led by Al Pacino's unforgettable performance as Tony Montana, many young actors could have disappeared into the background. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio did the opposite. As Gina Montana, Tony's younger sister, she brought warmth, vulnerability, and fierce emotion to a character caught between loyalty to family and the destructive world surrounding her. Although her screen time was limited, audiences remembered her. More importantly, casting directors remembered her. She had proven that even in the shadow of one of cinema's most explosive performances, she could command attention without ever trying to overpower the story. Then came the opportunity that transformed promise into prestige. In 1986, Martin Scorsese cast her opposite two generations of Hollywood greatness in The Color of Money. Sharing the screen with Paul Newman, and the rapidly rising Tom Cruise could have intimidated almost anyone, but Mary approached the challenge with remarkable confidence. As Carmen, she played a woman who was intelligent, practical, and emotionally sharp, refusing to become just another supporting love interest. Critics praised the depth she brought to the role, and audiences recognized that she belonged among Hollywood's finest performers. The Academy agreed, rewarding her with an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress before she had even reached the age of 30. Overnight, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was no longer simply a promising newcomer. She had become one of the industry's most respected actresses, and it suddenly seemed as though an extraordinary career had only just begun. By the end of the 1980s, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio had reached a point where almost every actor dreams of standing. She had earned the respect of critics, the confidence of major directors, and the admiration of audiences around the world. Yet the years that followed would prove that success in Hollywood is rarely as simple as moving steadily upward. Sometimes the very projects that define a career also change the person behind the performance. That reality became impossible to ignore during the making of James Cameron's The Abyss in 1989. Even today, the production is remembered as one of the most physically exhausting shoots in Hollywood history. Long before digital technology made underwater filmmaking easier, Cameron insisted on filming inside enormous water tanks, where actors spent countless hours submerged in cold water under incredibly demanding conditions. Mary took on the role of Lindsay Brigman, a brilliant engineer whose intelligence and emotional resilience drive much of the film's story. It remains one of the strongest performances of her career, but it came at an enormous personal cost. The cast endured months of relentless filming, repeated underwater takes, and conditions that tested both their physical endurance and emotional limits. Mary later admitted that some scenes pushed her further than any role ever had before, particularly the emotionally draining resuscitation sequence that required endless retakes. Although she eventually spoke about the experience with perspective rather than bitterness, there is little doubt that The Abyss changed the way she viewed the demands of blockbuster filmmaking. Ironically, just as that difficult production came to an end, her public profile continued to soar. She appeared in The January Man before reaching an even larger audience in 1991 with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. As Maid Marian, she brought intelligence and quiet strength to a character often reduced to little more than a romantic interest. While Kevin Costner carried the title role and Alan Rickman stole scenes with his unforgettable Sheriff of Nottingham, Mary provided the emotional balance that grounded the story. The film became one of the year's biggest worldwide hits, introducing her to millions of moviegoers across the globe. Yet instead of using that enormous commercial success to chase even bigger franchises, she made a different choice. She accepted thoughtful dramas like Class Action and the neo-noir White Sands, consistently choosing challenging characters over predictable celebrity. Looking back now, those decisions seem to reveal something important. Even at the height of her fame, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio appeared to value meaningful work far more than simply becoming Hollywood's next permanent superstar. As the 1990s moved forward, something subtle began to change. It wasn't the kind of change that makes headlines or fuels tabloid speculation. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio wasn't suddenly struggling to find work, nor had audiences stopped appreciating her talent. Instead, the choices she made became noticeably different. The large studio productions grew less frequent, replaced by smaller, character-driven films that seemed to interest her more than the promise of box office success. Looking back, it feels less like a career losing momentum and more like a woman quietly redefining what success meant on her own terms. That shift became even clearer after her marriage to Irish filmmaker Pat O'Connor in 1990. Together, they built a family, welcoming 2 sons before making another life-changing decision, relocating to London for much of the decade. For many Hollywood stars, leaving Los Angeles during the height of their careers would have seemed almost unimaginable. The industry has always rewarded constant visibility. Out of sight often means out of mind. Yet Mary appeared remarkably comfortable stepping away from that relentless cycle. London offered something Hollywood rarely could: privacy, stability, and the opportunity to raise her children away from the endless cameras and industry expectations. Rather than organizing her family around film productions, she organized her acting career around her family, accepting projects that allowed her to remain present during the years that mattered most. Her final major return to blockbuster filmmaking came in 2000 with The Perfect Storm. Based on Sebastian Junger's best-selling book, the film featured an impressive cast led by George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. Mary portrayed Linda Greenlaw, the accomplished fishing captain whose calm professionalism provided an important counterbalance to the film's unfolding tragedy. It wasn't a flashy performance designed to dominate the screen, but it perfectly reflected the qualities that had always made her such a respected actress. She brought authenticity, quiet authority, and emotional restraint to the role, reminding audiences that powerful performances don't always require dramatic speeches or oversized emotions. After The Perfect Storm, however, her presence in major theatrical films became increasingly rare. Instead of pursuing another string of Hollywood blockbusters, Mary gradually embraced television and occasional stage work. At the very moment when prestige television was entering its golden age, she found a different rhythm, one that allowed her to continue acting while maintaining the balance she had spent years carefully building. For many fans, it looked as though she had disappeared. In reality, she had simply chosen a different stage on which to perform, one that fit the life she wanted, rather than the life Hollywood expected her to live. So, what really happened to Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio? After looking back over the remarkable path she traveled, the answer turns out to be far less dramatic than many people expected. Hollywood didn't reject her. She didn't become trapped in scandal, nor did she simply fade away because audiences lost interest. Instead, she made a decision that remains surprisingly rare in an industry built on constant ambition. She chose to let her career serve her life, rather than allowing her life to be consumed by her career. For those of us who remember the films of the 1980s and 1990s, there is certainly a sense of nostalgia when we think about what might have been. It's easy to imagine Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio starring in countless more acclaimed films, collecting additional awards, and becoming one of the defining leading ladies of her generation. She possessed every quality necessary to do exactly that. Yet, success is measured differently by different people. While Hollywood often celebrates those who never stop chasing the next project, Mary seems to have found greater satisfaction in protecting the life she built beyond the cameras.
Perhaps that's why her performances continue to feel so authentic today. Whether you revisit Scarface, The Color of Money, The Abyss, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or The Perfect Storm, you see an actress who never relied on celebrity to make an impression. She relied on honesty, intelligence, and complete commitment to every character she played. Those qualities never disappear with time.
In the end, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio's story isn't really about a star who vanished. It's about an artist who understood that there comes a moment when personal happiness can matter more than professional recognition. And perhaps that's the most enduring lesson her career leaves behind. Sometimes the greatest success isn't staying in the spotlight forever. Sometimes it's having the courage to step away from it while still knowing exactly who you are. If you enjoyed revisiting this remarkable Hollywood journey, I'd love to hear which Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio performance has stayed with you all these years. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.